Hi, loves. Welcome to a new episode of the AW Confidential podcast. March is Women's History Month, a time to celebrate past and present contributions made by women to our society. There are many women who have fought for us to be sitting here today, doing what we love and benefiting from the freedoms we hold, some of which we're still fighting for. We're dreaming big. We are judges, astronauts, vice presidents, surgeons, CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, and the sky is the limit. Maybe one day we'll get a president. I don't know if in my lifetime, but we'll see. I want to make sure that this month you remind yourself, you commit to your wins and also celebrate other women's wins. I think that's important. And I have been saying this a lot, but it's um, collaboration over competition. With that said, I am super excited about our guest today. She is an amazing woman. I called her a badass. She is, and she deserves her flowers. Dafna Mizrahi is a Mexican Jewish chef who has carried traditions generation to generation through recipes drawing influences from both her cultures. Daphna is the winner of one of my absolute favorite shows, Chopped. And she's also the founder of Curamia Tequila, which I have tried and I love it. I made a paloma specifically for this episode today. Now, her journey from Jalisco, is it Jalisco or Guadalajara?
Well, Guadalajara is part of Jalisco, so you can say either.
Perfect. So she is going to share her journey today, and I am so grateful. Daphna, how are you?
I'm great, Yvette. How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. You're so amazing. You know, you were born in Jalisco. The Latino culture is known for its traditional gender roles. And I read, and I have to ask because I don't want to forget, I read that your grandmother was a mother to seven children and the wife of a doctor. But so I'm sure she was, I mean, everything to everyone. And matriarchs are the core of many of our families. I wanted to know, what part did she play in your journey, because it's so different. But I did read that she was an inspiration. So how did that work?
It's funny because there's been a lot of women in my life that have been an inspiration. It's funny because there's been a lot of women in my life that have been an inspiration to where I am today. And I would say that both of my grandmothers were very unique in nature and in the time of where women did not work. My maternal grandmother was a wife to a gynecologist doctor and a mother of seven. And not only did she help my grandfather at the hospital with obviously the delivering of plenty of babies in Mexico, but also she worked and took care of seven kids, right? And my grandmother from my father's side was a wedding dress designer and also not a chef by trade, but definitely was one of the best chefs I've ever encountered. So I feel like both of them definitely played a major role in my character and my DNA and who I am today. I can't really pinpoint in what many ways because there's endless, and I can kind of go back into those, but they've both been pretty big staples into who I am today.
And they were strong women, right?
Exactly. So strong women
Absolutely.
definitely were not shy to speak and or share their opinions and their thoughts, and they were big advocates of other women, which again back in the day was not something that was as pressing as it is now. And then more importantly, they were out there in the workforce, right? Like I mentioned, one in the hospital with my grandfather, and the other one at her shop making wedding dresses and being a designer.
So it's interesting because in that time, that was, I can imagine, unheard of, right?
Yes, and I mean this goes back. Unfortunately, they both have passed, but obviously their legacy is with us. But both of them definitely were strong women and did what was not something ordinary, right? So they did the
So that makes sense.
extraordinary in their fields and really were very passionate about what they were doing.
I get the connection now. I get the connection. So you chose to be a chef, which I love. I'm a home chef. Like I love to cook. Um, so you did that, or you continue to do that? No.
So I went to school for culinary arts. I've had big passions in life, and one of them is fitness, wellness, business, and obviously culinary arts. And I would say that I decided to go to the Culinary Arts Institute of America here in New York, as it is known to be one of the best culinary schools, with the goal of becoming an entrepreneur and owning my own restaurant. So it was never to really be the chef behind the line.
Oh,
It
wow.
kind of happened by default because, as my grandmothers were also very determined and very driven about what they were doing, so am I. And so when I really got into cooking, not only did I succeed, but also I knew what the customer wanted. So I feel like it was by default that I ended up cooking a lot more than what I ever thought, but I don't regret it whatsoever.
Awesome. And you're so this is what's so cool. So you chose to be a chef by default. Then you became a founder of a tequila brand. Now, both of these areas, which is what I found interesting, are very male dominated industries.
Yes.
Although women are beginning to disrupt the industries, but they're not, these areas are not easily penetrated by women. So, how did you find the confidence to pursue these challenging industries? Because I can only imagine that you must have had some struggles to overcome.
Absolutely. And I think, as every other, I mean, when you think of what are male or female dominant industries, you do think of liquor and you do think of food as predominantly male, when maybe you think in fashion and perhaps in marketing as predominantly female, right? But I think they all have their own challenges. And when it comes to the food and beverage industry, yes, up until today, these are industries that are forever going. And the reason why I say this is because most of the people in the industry have been there for years and years and years, right? So it's not a short career or a quick career. People do stay and linger, which again keeps the whole male force, if you will, continue to grow. Now, when it comes to females and what we're doing, so I partner up with our co-founder Melissa Del Savio, and Melissa is really the industry guru when it comes to beverage, and she's been in the wine and spirits industry for 20 years. So she herself has faced these challenges as well. So when the two of us partnered up, we knew what was going to come in front of us, but it's nothing that hasn't already happened, right? To either of us, me, whether it was in a restaurant where I was the only female in the kitchen, or whether it was at school where I was told that because of my looks, I should be in the front of the house, not the back of the house. There's plenty
Wait,
of,
like literally you were told
yeah,
that? Oh,
there's plenty
wow.
of obstacles that you face as a female, but then you also put your goals and dreams before those obstacles, and you just know that there's nothing that will make those dreams and goals not come
Well,
true.
it
So that's
takes
kind of
confidence.
that's kind of how we did this.
And biggest lesson learned?
To say no. And
Wait,
I think
what?
that is a big lesson that all of us should really learn. And I learned this from one of my mentors, who is a powerhouse in the industry, Mindy Grossman. And she said it's much harder to say no than it is to say yes. And it's knowing when to say no. Because as
Wow.
you're growing and as you're climbing the ladder, as all of us are in our own ways, there are going to be moments in which you should say no, right? And it's not because you are feeling like you're going to miss out, but it's actually because you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your brand. And you are, again, like a horse with blinders, I would say, going for the goal. So I would say, again, learning when to say no and how to say no in a way in which you don't feel guilty. And I think that's a lot of the female attitude too, where we feel guilty by saying no, or we feel like we're not going to be liked by saying no, or we're not going to be respected. I think it's the opposite. You actually
Yeah,
will be a lot more respected and a lot more liked by the industry folk when they know that you have the power of saying no.
absolutely. That's such a good point. Now, according to Globe Newswire, I read an article that stated that the global tequila market size reached over $16 billion, and it's projected to continue to grow. And we see that, with the different brands that sort of are born, every year. So tequila is one of the most competitive categories of spirits in, across the industry. Like I mentioned, it is dominated by men, although in recent years we are seeing more women launching brands, which is really cool. Now, why choose tequila? And what sets Curamia tequila apart?
So
Because they
both
all have their secret sauce, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. So they're both great questions. Why tequila? Tequila, again, and I go back to the first question you asked me, and wellness and fitness has, again, always been a big part of my life. I was a gymnast growing up, and my mom was a professional ballerina. So obviously, that aspect of well being has been pretty much of a staple in our household. And tequila not only is from the town I was born in, and it's the only Mexican spirit. So, in a way, I am reclaiming our spirit. Yes, as you mentioned, tequila emerged not only every year, but every month there seems to be a new tequila that's
Wow.
launched, and most of them have a Hollywood face in front of them, right? So it's
Mm.
not staying true to its origin, which is again Jalisco and Mexico. So that's one. We wanted to reclaim our spirit. In
Love
both
that.
ways, right? The spirit of tequila and also the spirit of Mexico. And then the second one was why tequila and why are we different? And I went back to understanding why tequila even started and who started it. And it was generations ago where tequila was actually used as a medicinal practice, right? It was a plant, and it's still a plant, the agave plant that was fermented, and it cured a lot of issues that people had with their stomachs, because back in the day you were storing meat underground, there was not refrigeration, so they used tequila as that part of probiotic, if you will, to the human gut. And overall, as we are very much focused right now in what happens to our gut and how we're feeling and how it all stems from there, I went down a deep dive of understanding what has the progression and transition of tequila been to minimize that wellness effect, right? And it's been the fact that we overproduce tequila. We harvest very young. We add additives like caramel, vanilla, and glycerin, and then that medicinal practice goes out the door. So with Kuramia, our focus has been to create a better for you, better for the planet spirit. And we do that by being priced accessible so that the general consumer is able to purchase a bottle of Curamia and enjoy a clean tequila and not have to spend $70-$80
Yeah.
on one of those clean bottles. So, again, Curamia is appealing to the general consumer who's wishing to have a cocktail that is clean, free of additives, and also through our process we've been able to minimize those harsh side effects to our world by lowering methanol and propanol levels, which hurt not only the consumer but also the chemical reactions that are going back in the atmosphere. But we've done 100% yield on all of our plants, 27% less energy, and 60% less water usage with our destillation. So this is important because the consumer of today is not only mindful of what they're putting into their bodies, but how they're being helpful or hurtful to our environment. And so Kuramia achieves both. And again, the price point is definitely a draw for the consumer to be able to try a new brand that they probably haven't or haven't heard of before.
I have to share that when I tried your, because the first thing I did was I tried it without any mixers or anything, because that's the only way to get the pure taste. It and you can sort of correct me if I'm wrong. So usually when I have tequila, you could smell, I mean, it's alcohol. You could smell, you could taste. It's But this is a little different. I almost tasted, and everyone's taste buds are different, but it's almost like a sweetness. Like it was very
It's floral. So it's floral and
ah
citrus versus a harsh. Usually, when you smell tequila, you're smelling dirt, you're smelling leather, you're smelling musk, you're smelling alcohol, right? And with Curamia, based on not only are we lowland tequila, but our method of distillation produces a very clean product that is not as harsh on the nose and or the throat. So when you tasted Curamia and you can share it here, you didn't feel that burn that otherwise you feel when you're drinking tequila, right? And that's the whole
Exactly.
thing with us, is we want you to be able to enjoy it with a steak or in a paloma or in a margarita, depending on what it is that you want to do, but it is clean enough to just sip on its own.
I love it. I'm a fan.
Thank you.
Now, I'm curious, what did your family think of this idea when you started, when you said, okay, I'm going to start a tequila brand now? And how important was their support or lack of?
No, they're very supportive. I think everybody that was in my circle said, "How cool! How are you doing that?" And then they didn't question it twice, because
Wow.
again, that's just the type of person that I am, and our co-founders are. We're determined, and again, what we've learned through this journey has been something that we wouldn't have ever thought we would learn, right? From the finance point of view, raising capital, marketing, advertising,
Mhm.
the do's and don'ts. And a lot of this you can't learn in school. This is not something that you learn. You just have to go through it. So our families were very supportive, and I think we've all made sacrifices to be able to be where we are today. And this is just another one that we are very proud of.
I love that. Now, if you had to choose one lesson that you learned as a woman doing business in a man's world, what would that be?
Say what you say what you say, and say what you think, and don't be afraid of the outcome, because a lot of the times is those that stay quiet, right? I think again, you
Mm,
walk into a very male dominant room and you get intimidated, and the fact is that you're getting intimidated based on what society has taught us to be, right? Intimidated by this um, other gender, but in reality, everyone's got something to contribute, and you're not going to know. You are the one that knows the most about your brand, and you should be a big advocate not only of your brand but of yourself as well.
I love the way you think. I wish I would have had someone tell me that years ago. I used to be one of those that would hide in the back of the room or just, como es calladita te ves más bonita. That's how I grew up.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we
Yeah.
were told, right? As
Yeah.
kids, you're like that. But it's not the way in business, because at the end of the day, no one's gonna fight harder than you for you and your brand, and that's it. And it's, you're gonna hear so many more no's than yeses, and a lot of people feel defeated by the no's. But for me, a rejection is a redirection.
I
That's all
love
it is.
that. Yes. So we learn so much from the journey as entrepreneurs, and we make mistakes. I don't call them failures. Now I call them lessons.
Yeah.
So we learn from our mistakes and we make them. We, like you said, there's a redirection, there's a pivot. What was your biggest mistake going into this venture that you can look back on now and say, wow, that was a blessing in disguise?
Honestly, as a founder, a lot of the times you raise more capital than you really need, and you end up losing a lot of your equity early on, simply
Mm,
because you mismanage the money, or you're wanting to do everything at the same time. And why I mean everything is, you want to hire marketing, you want to hire PR, you want to hire people, you want to hire HR, you want to hire legal, you want to hire accounting, everybody, and money goes by really, really fast. And so I am very proud of Melissa and I's way of managing the operation and the capital, to where we did not dilute ourselves as much as
wow.
we would have otherwise. And I say mistake and not mistake. It was actually a blessing in disguise, because there were moments in which we said, why don't we raise more, or we raise now? But it wasn't the right time, because the world wasn't in a financial stand to raise, or it wasn't the best time, but also because of how diluted we would be. So right now we are raising capital. We're doing our Series A, which we're super excited. We know and understand that these are hard times to raise capital,
Yeah.
especially on Series A and alcohol. But we know that the right partner will come along, and we will be able to bring a beautiful spirit to the majority of the U.S. and hopefully travel beyond that.
Absolutely. So, talking about that, I just want to sort of give you the space to manifest because it's going to happen. You just seem so determined,
Yeah.
and you're going into this with purpose. It's not just about, oh, making a brand, and it has purpose. So, I was wondering, what is your what do you project? What do you see with Curamia? And I keep saying Curamia because I'm Latina and I'm like,
Sure, no, I'm glad you're saying it. So what we want to do is we want to do the Tito's effect, and I call it Tito's effect because when
share if you can.
Tito's, yeah, no, I mean, when Tito's came out, it came out as a gluten-free vodka, right? But there were already too many gluten-free vodkas out there. They just were the first ones to come out with it, and it was a slow climb. But then once it became known, it was all over the place. It was the vodka of choice for people. And that's what Kuramia is going to be. Again, we are doing the slow climb. We don't have celebrity facing. We don't have endless dollars, and we have not partnered up with a large company like a Constellation or like a Diageo, but we're definitely on the way to creating cult following with the consumer, where actually the consumer dictates the product, right? Versus the opposite way. So we are we know Kuramia is going to be in every bar in America, and we're very excited for that. And we're here for the climb,
I love
and
that.
we know that it'll happen, and we'll be able to not only make an impact with the industry and also as females, but with anybody that is able to benefit from Kuramia, not
I
only
love
from our
that.
teams, but obviously our families and people in Mexico.
And I want to make sure that, that people know. So I have the clear one, the white, the
De
is it
Blanco.
clear? The
Sure.
blanco. Do you have different ones?
Yes. So we have the Blanco, which is our unaged tequila. So that is literally you harvest the agave, you distill it, and it goes right into a bottle. Then we have the Reposado tequila, which means rested, and that is rested in New American oak barrels for 4 to 5 months. So you're going to see a hint of brown, if you will, or honey hues. And then we have our añejo, which is rested for 2 years. So it's aged, right? Añejo means aged, and that is aged in New American oak. We are going to launch the Cristalino this year. TBD on when or what season that will be, but we are very excited about it. And I think that's going to be a great introduction to the US. The Cristalino is actually a charcoal filter reposado. So it
Ah.
looks clear like the Blanco, but it has the flavor and the substance of the reposado.
And I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna show my a little bit of ignorance in tequila. I'm learning.
Sure.
I'm more of a wine person, but I like this tequila I like because like I said, I enjoy it. I don't feel that harsh taste. So I'm curious, can you make a mezcal or that's a totally different process?
It's not a totally different process. It's different type of agave. It doesn't
Okay.
have to be Blue Weber. What Blue Weber is for tequila, but it's not something that we are interested in doing right now. We are
Okay.
sticking to just tequila and doing the four different ones, and perhaps
Well,
coming up with a special edition later on.
Well, I'll have to try those. I'll have to try those, and we'll
Yes,
get into the details about the product. But I do have another question because I
sure.
think it's so powerful that I want to share this. Tequila is no longer only for men, just like cigars. Now, Curamia Tequila is a female-led brand founded by women with an investment group made up of only women. Is that
Yes.
correct?
So I would
And oh, wait, I want
no.
to give you your
Go ahead.
flowers. And it employs over 95% women in their distillery in Mexico. Is that right?
Yes. So we are so far predominantly, well, we are female funded and founded up until now. We
I
understand
love
that as we
that.
grow, that might not be a possibility
Yeah.
because
I
money will
know.
come from
Yeah.
many different ways. And that's okay. The distillery that we partner up with has 95% women working in the distillery. So
Wow.
we are very proud of saying that Kuramia is a brand that is touched by a lot of women,
I love that.
and we're very excited to share that with
I
the world.
love that so much.
By no
Now,
means are we just for women, though. That I want to make sure it's clear.
well, I actually I do want to make a comment. I also read that I guess your I'm not sure if it's your vision, but um Curamia Tequila is also about connection and making a positive impact. And that is across genders, across cultures.
Yes.
So is that correct?
Yes, so Kuramia is a brand that again is led and funded by women for the world to enjoy. and the world, meaning anybody who's able and wants to have a cocktail, or wants to have a nice sipping tequila, they are welcome to join the Curamia world with us, and join us on our journey. By no means is it defined by gender or age. To us, is a lifestyle, not a gender and not an age.
Awesome. Now, if you could share a single piece of advice to help a class of new entrepreneurs make their own impact on just the others' entrepreneurial journey, what would that be?
Don't think you know everything, and surround yourself with people who are smarter than you.
That
And
is
I say this
awesome.
because, and I don't mean smarter in every way. We're all very skilled in our own ways, but there's learning is an ever growing. Your muscle in your brain is ever growing, and you should be learning along the way, and not thinking that you know everything, because somebody out there might have experienced it and could save you not only a ton of money by not having to go through it, but perhaps some time and heartache and headaches. So I would say surround yourself with cheerleaders that are behind you and empowering you, and that speak about you, not of you, when you are in a room.
I love that. Daphna, thank you so, so much. Please share with our community. How do they find this amazing tequila? How could they learn more about it? And you, please share.
Thank you. So we are in 12 states, mainly in the East Coast, but we are going to grow into the West Coast. The best way to find Curamia is online on our website, which is curamiatequila.com. You can purchase the three different bottles, and they will be shipped to your address of choice. If you are in the 12 states in which we're in, which is again the East Coast, we are in New York, we're in New Jersey, we're in Tennessee, we're in Georgia, we're in Florida. The list goes on. If you are in those states, please go to your local liquor store and ask for Curamia, so that the liquor store and Mr. Retailer knows to order the product, as he has some following from a consumer point of view. So please do that. Follow us on Curamia Tequila on Instagram, as well as TikTok and Facebook.
And your
And we will be
website?
happy to, if you send us a DM, I'll be happy to answer. I am answering those DMs myself. So looking forward to getting to know all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much. Again, congratulations on everything you're doing. And we look forward to hearing more about any new additions. That special edition, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Yvette,
Awesome.
for having me.
Thank you. And thank you, Los, for joining us on this episode of the AW Confidential Podcast. Talk to you soon.
Bye.